Newstalk ZB News.
Good morning. It's 6:30. I'm Neva Reddy Manu. It's thought the government's wording of its plea for an end to the violence in Gaza reflects our compromised position. All parties in the House have supported a motion urging those involved in the conflict to take urgent steps towards establishing a ceasefire. International geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller told Tim Dower it's clear the government didn't want to call for an immediate stop in fighting, so landed on steps toward establishing a ceasefire.
Of course, these things do matter. Diplomacy is all about language, and there is a difference there. I think we probably do need to call for that immediate ceasefire. That's what the UN Secretary-General has called for.
Newstalk ZB News.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Neva Reddy Manu. The government's being told phrasing in its call for an end to violence in Gaza needs to pack a stronger punch. All parties in the House have supported a motion urging those involved in the conflict to take urgent steps towards establishing a ceasefire. Geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller told Tim Dower the wording is telling.
They didn't want to call for the immediate ceasefire, so steps towards a ceasefire was kind of the compromise.
That view is backed by Amnesty International Aotearoa. Its campaigns director, Lisa Woods, says it's not good enough to leave the heavy lifting to others.
This government must be doing all that it can to see a ceasefire realised, including using all diplomatic channels it has available to encourage any other country that hasn't yet joined the call to do so.
The situation in Gaza has led to calls for New Zealand to shout much louder about it. Our Foreign Affairs Minister, Winston Peters, has called for steps towards a ceasefire. Is that helpful? Do Israel or Hamas give a carrot about New Zealand? International geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller is with us at Newstalk ZB this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
Steps towards a ceasefire. What do you make of that kind of comment?
Oh, it was clearly a compromise position. They didn't want to call for the immediate ceasefire, so steps towards a ceasefire was kind of the compromise. Of course, these things do matter. Diplomacy is all about language, and there is a difference there. I think we probably do need to call for that immediate ceasefire. That's what the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, has called for. He's invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, which hasn't been used since 1971, to effectively call for an urgent Security Council meeting that will happen overnight tonight, New Zealand time. And, we do need a ceasefire. It's the humanitarian situation is going from horrific to catastrophic. And you've got 1.9 million Palestinians there in the south of Gaza where they've got really nowhere to go. So it's pretty bleak over there.
It is very uncommon, isn't it, to actually call the Security Council in this way, saying this may aggravate, Guterres saying it may aggravate threats to international peace and security, and Israel's foreign minister dismissive of that.
Yes, there's no love lost between Israel and the UN Secretary-General. They've really been at loggerheads since this war began or shortly thereafter over comments that Guterres made. I think obviously, there are different views on the situation, and the long-term political situation is something different, really. I think in the immediate short term, we desperately need humanitarian aid coming into Gaza. And we did have that window, that 7-day ceasefire, and you did see more aid coming into Gaza. It's absolutely slowed to a trickle. Now you've only got 50 trucks odd getting into Gaza, and there's a real problem with distributing the aid now to those who need it. So the need has never been greater. The aid is almost never been smaller, and it really is quite horrific. So I'm not sure we need to mince words and talk about urgent steps towards it. I think we need to call a spade a spade. We do need that ceasefire. But then we need to take further action, Tim. And I think for New Zealand, we can play a small part in the long-term solution, but we need our Foreign Minister, Winston Peters, I think, to head over to the Middle East. That's what Penny Wong is going to do shortly. She's going to be heading to the Middle East shortly in the new year, early in the new year, rather. And if Australia is doing that, we need to do that as well. But Winston Peters so far hasn't really shown we haven't seen any statements that he's planning a trip. He did published yesterday that he's planning phone calls. He had a phone call with Eli Cohen, the Israeli foreign minister, and he's planning calls with his Qatari and Egyptian counterparts. I mean, that's all very well, but you actually have to go over and I think get the views of those players on the ground. And I think, New Zealand needs to take it to the next level. We can't just sit there in Wellington arguing about semantics, about our parliamentary motions. We actually need to walk the talk and take some action. And we can play a small but significant role within this. And New Zealand has very high credibility in the Middle East that we've built up over many years.
We've been involved.
Bigger than we think, Tim.
We've been involved on the ground for so many, many years, haven't we? And we've always had a presence there. Jeffrey Miller, international geopolitical analyst, that is a peacekeeping, or at least not peacekeeping presence, but we have a diplomatic presence in that part of the world. We're trying, but who's listening? Thanks so much, Jeffrey Miller, international geopolitical analyst.